My name is Tom Christie. This is Sunday Civics. Thanks for tuning in. We talk about civics in action and what really happens. On this date in 1967, Woody Guthrie passed away. And I guess I mentioned that because it was a historic event. Woody Guthrie is American as any other institution in America, and we just forget. And I find that happens in everything. Unless it's right in front of our face these days, we forget. So important things like an audit, like headline making news is gone in a minute, and we try not to do that. So I did want to pay attention to an audit which recently came out from the New York State Comptroller's Office. It was an audit of the Off-Track Betting Corporation, Western Region Off-Track Betting, because I believe there's 5 OTBs throughout the state. Over the course of government and such, various people have run gambling operations throughout our history. And in the 70s, I believe, we decided to have the government do that. And we created OTB, off-track betting. Took over horse racing and I believe other things. We'll find out in a minute. But we formalized the gambling process. So all the revenue that comes from gambling, now that the state runs the gambling operation, is distributed to counties. In Western Region, I believe it's 14 counties, cut up the profits of how to run the gambling operation. And that reduces your and my tax liability. So if I have a garbage fee, it could be eliminated if more people gambled. I mean, not a one-to-one relationship, but something like that. So every once in a while, governments are audited and operational governments are audited. And thank God they are. It's just a process. It's not an accusation of anything. But when those audits come out, they find various things. And one came out on OTB recently, and it showed some not good things, which we'll get into in a minute. So what we like to do is talk to the experts who do these things and find out what they really found. So without further ado, we'll bring on the New York State Comptroller's Office who did the audits. Jabulani Mangena, I can't even speak English, so that's a butcher of that person's name, and Nicole Thompson. So they're joining us. Nicole's with us right now. Nicole, thanks. I think Jabulani will be on in a second. So Nicole, maybe you could start by telling me, and Jabulani, thanks, welcome. Thanks for giving up part of your Sunday to help us with Sunday Civics.
Thank you for having us.
If either one of you could start with why we have a state comptroller. We have 4 statewide elected officials: governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and comptroller. Why do we have a comptroller? What do they do? What are the functions? Could you give us a little background on that?
Yeah, Tom, I can talk about that. Well, our state comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, he's the chief fiscal officer of New York State. And I guess he kind of oversees making sure state and local governments use taxpayer money effectively and efficiently. He's the sole trustee of the state retirement system, which is $258 billion investment. He's also responsible for administering the state and local retirement system for all the public employees in the state. Mm-hmm. He maintains the state's accounting system, and also we do audits of local governments and state agencies.
So audits are only one slice of what the office does.
The state comptroller's office is a huge operation. And
right. I'd forgotten that you monitor or you invest all of our pension funds. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty, I can't even get my head around that. How do you, I mean, that alone is something that boggles the mind. But I don't care about that. So let's go to audit. So when I was in government and I was in the Erie County Clerk's office, and we had a terrible financial situation, we called for an audit. We intentionally asked to be audited. And I was there at the time, and it was fantastic. Like, you come in, whoever did it, I don't know, but they come in and they look at what you're doing. They tell you what's wrong. They give you a point-by-point report card. And then you go ahead and you just tick those things off and fix them. Like it was a car shop. I mean, it couldn't have been easier. Now, I'm sure the audit was not easy, and the people that do these audits are sharp people. I had the utmost respect for them. They're speaking a different language when they're there, right? They speak to each other. You can't understand them. They're talking in code. But when those bullet point comes out, it's pretty clear. look, do this instead of that. So you do that. Now, that's what my experience was. Do you find that the person on the other side of the table, with that point it was me, is that receptive? Is that helpful? Is that understanding of what you're doing? Or is it more like you come in, you flash your badge, and oh my God, I hate you, and I'm going to put you in a non-air conditioned closet for 6 months and try and give you nothing? You know, what's your attitude? What's your experience when you go into an audit?
Well, I'd say for most part, local government officials are receptive when we come in, because we're providing them with a service that they don't have to pay for, like, because we're not like a CPA firm where we're coming in, but they hired us. And so I don't know, we go in, give them whatever information, we go through their operations, we do what we call like a risk assessment, and we go through a number of areas to see where they're going with, whether it's financial management or purchasing or their processing of payments, payroll, that kind of thing. And we decide from there what area we think has the most risk or areas that has the most risk. And then we kind of focus in on those areas. And that's where we do our more detailed audit testing and interviews.
Jabulani, did you work specifically on the OTB audit?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
And were you requested to, or did you do it because a citizen called? Or, I mean, how did they come onto your radar?
Actually, that's a management decision. So I was just assigned by, the manager of our office to go to OTB and do an audit. Yeah.
And do you call ahead of time? They know you're coming, obviously. I mean, is it a shock to the system? Do they get OTB specific, do they get regularly audited every 5 years, or is it only when there's a concern?
Actually, our office kind of, they kind of do what you call kind of risk assessment, based, on a number of things or that, just come up. And then, once in a while, we just go to different local government agencies and kind of do an audit.
Mm-hmm. So, like, is there a list of 72,000 possible local governments that you might audit? Or is there, how do you ever spin the wheel or throw a dartboard and pick anybody? Or, can I call up and say, I think, they're stealing concrete out the back door of a place? I mean, how do you pick? What's the universe, and how do you pick them?
Okay, Nicole, you want to answer that?
Yeah, that's probably a better question. Well, we have probably like 800 or so local governments in our region. And we do, like Jabulani said, a risk-based approach, and that can include a number of things. Like, we keep an eye on fiscal stress scores, which are on our website. We also look at what's going on in the news. We think about how long it's been since we were last at a local government. Also, sometimes taxpayers or residents call our office with complaints. So it's like a number of factors that we put together. And of course, schools, we do them more often because we have like a rotating schedule that we do on, but.
So what landed OTB in your focus? I think this is your second OTB audit. So even going back to the first one, why did they come into your focus?
Well, the same thing, number of factors. There was complaints that were in the news. There were, I think OTB actually requested an audit too in their board did.
Oh, did they really?
And there was
that's encouraging.
Reasons.
That's encouraging. So in the most recent audit, how long did it take? When did you go in? What did you find?
Well, we started in 2019 and
August, yeah.
Pre-COVID,
like it's like a 9/11 event here. Pre-COVID, you went in.
It was before COVID.
Yeah.
So we started back then. And we did our normal process. Like I mentioned earlier, we did a risk assessment. We looked at a bunch of areas to decide where we thought was the most risk. And we ended up with 2 areas that we reported out on recently, which was the take-home vehicles and the use of their promotional program for the suites.
Mm-hmm. So wait, let me go back. So they become on your radar for a myriad of reasons, but say because it's in the news. Investigative Post has done a lot of stories on OTB. So that comes to your attention, and you go in and just say, we'd like to poke around, or you go in and say, I want to look at vehicle records? Like which end of that spectrum? If I get an IRS tax audit, they ask, they say, well, we don't agree with your deduction about having 72 children. They then look at that. Or do you go in and say, we just want to look around? That's a little scarier. So how did you approach them in 2019?
Well, like I said, we start generally. So we look at their policies and procedures to see what's going on with those. We look at board minutes, see what's been talked about. We go through and we do all of our audits. We do a retirement system review. So we start with retirement and look at some payroll stuff.
Mhm.
And then from there, we focused on some of those other areas.
Yeah. So you found 2 areas of concern. It was the take-home vehicles. What was the other one?
It was the distribution of those tickets for the suites.
Right. So let's go to the take-home vehicles. First of all, I guess, I don't know, would people be surprised that people in not even elective office, but just the government world have a vehicle? Oh, I mean, they have a free car. They're entitled to a free car because they work at OTB. Is that a normalcy? That's okay, right? The board can vote for whatever it wants.
Yeah, the board decided they wanted certain officials to have take-home vehicles. I think it was only about 7 people during our audit that had a take-home vehicle. So
Yeah.
we were mainly looking at, like, policy was that they were supposed to account for them in a certain way, including they're supposed to do regular mileage reports. They were supposed to, reimburse OTV for any personal mileage.
Yeah. And did they? What did you find?
And like I said, in our report, we found in general, most of the people that had the take-home vehicle were doing that. They were doing
compliant?
their mileage reports. They're regularly reimbursing, except for the CEO. He wasn't following those policies.
Only one person wasn't. So that's what you wrote up. One person was not. Right. And what was I guess, do you give that person the chance to explain? So what was their explanation for why? I just forget, or?
Well, we did talk to them to find out why he wasn't doing them. And I think what he said was basically in their response that, he should have been doing it, but it was kind of an oversight on their part.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you think, Jablani? Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's what they said. Kind of, yeah, it was an oversight on their part. They didn't do that.
So this isn't rising to the crime of murder, of course, but I'm able to just say, I'm sorry. I never filed a report. I'm sorry. And we move on. Is that how that happens, or?
The state comptroller, we're a reporting entity, so all we can do is report out on what's going on, and from there, it's up to them to decide how they're gonna.
Up to the board, right? So it's not malfeasance necessarily, but you report, hey, nobody's following procedures, and you give that to the board. The board does nothing. Not that you don't care, but you don't care, right? I mean, it's not your job. The board runs it. So the board is, I think, made up of the 14, one representative, one appointee from each 14 municipalities, correct? I think
it's
Right.
about 15 counties and 2 cities.
Right. So those representatives, 17 people or so, get this information that the CEO's not reporting back any mileage. Deal with it or don't.
We do ask them to send in a corrective action plan, which is due 90 days after that report was released.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that corrective action plan is like a public document, so it should say how they're planning on addressing our recommendations.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the other one. I don't know how to run a gambling operation myself, but it's important to have a suite at Rich Stadium, or I call it still Rich Stadium, at the Buffalo Bills Stadium and maybe the Sabres Arena. That doesn't even sound odd, really, that you'd want to take high rollers there, but I don't know. How is that all played out? That was your other part of your investigation or your findings. What did you find there?
Well, we looked at the OTB. They have a marketing program where part of it is they have the suites at the 3 venues, the Bills Stadium and the Sabres, and then the Rochester Americans. So the rules from the regulations from the state, the Gaming Commission that say that they have to keep track of who they're giving those kind of tickets to. So
Right.
in their marketing plan, they say they don't mention anything about that they're going to be giving them to anyone other than gamers, like people that use the video gaming facilities there,
Mm-hmm.
like high rollers and sweepstakes and that kind of thing. So
You're an accountant world. You're not in the legal world, but I think you're not allowed to take gifts if you're an elected official. So even as an appointed official, when I was in government, I couldn't take a gift. And it was like up to $25, very low. Bag of jelly beans, really. But if I'm a high roller and an elected official, what category am I in first? You know, like I go to Batavia Downs, I pull the lever, I win $250. They come over and give me a Bills ticket. Am I an assemblyman or a senator, or am I a gambler?
well, I'm not sure if we had any elected officials like that were considered, players at the OTB, because they do have a list of like players, because they have like a players club and that kind of thing. Those are the type of people that were getting those tickets.
Well, I guess I've jumped to the investigative post reports, which kind of said, we think other people are going to these games. And then OTB says, well, we're not telling you because drop dead, and we're at that loggerheads. Now in comes, experts like you guys to do an audit. And I don't know what you found in that regard, but they actually, investigative post pretty much alluded that there were, various people going to this who should have reported it themselves. So you didn't have the names, and you didn't get names of people that were given those tickets.
Well, we did. We got reports that showed who got the tickets during our audit period. They didn't have records for a certain time, like the earlier part of our audit period. So based on what records we were provided, we found out there was about 550 tickets that went to people that weren't players, like either people that worked at the OTB or officials like board members or employees of the OTB.
Yeah. I know some people that have suites at, say, Sabres games, and say it's, Bob's Plumbing Company, and there's 20 tickets in every suite. And somebody from Bob's Plumbing Company has to go every night to make sure that things get done, right? It's kind of a function of your job. You watch the 19 other people came in who were customers, the plumbing customers, and you made sure they had a good time. That's what you're there for. You think it was above and beyond that? One member from the OTB showed up to make sure everybody had a good time. You think it was, or you found that they just took tickets and handed them out to buddies, not gamblers? I guess where's the line of whether I'm a gambler or a buddy or a cousin? Like you had a line, right?
Right. We used whether or not they were in the players tracking. If they had a players club number, we counted those people as a player. And if they were an employee of OTB, we counted those as someone that was a non-player. But we found for some games according to them, it was about 2 people that should go to a game to act as a host at each event. And we found some games where there were more than 2 tickets going to OTB officials.
How many tickets are to a suite? Let's say a Bills game. Today's a Bills game. Hopefully going to wipe the carpet with the Houston Texans. I'm a home team guy. That suite has 20 seats, 25, 75, 1,000. I've not been in one, shockingly. How many seats are in there?
I think they're the Bills 16. 16, yeah.
16 for the Bills suite, yes.
So you have a Bills game today. There's 16 high rollers that can go. Maybe 1 OTB person, maybe 2 OTB people, and 15, 14 people that high rollers, right? That's in theory. When they propose this to the board, they say, we really think a Bill suite should, and I think, do you know how much a Bill suite costs per year? I think, is it 200 grand, something like that?
Len, do you remember from what we looked at for them ish?
Okay, I can check those numbers for you.
As you're thinking of that, I
It was around-
investigated a Sabres suite one time, and the Sabres game was 149,000.
Yeah, I think theirs was around 100,000 a year for the lease.
$100,000. So they invest 100,000 to invite 14 people a game to the thing. And what the crux of the rub here is they might not have been high rollers. They might have just been your friends, your mom. I'm taking mom to a game on the OTB, and that's not quite kosher. Is that it? Right? Is that?
A lot of the games, they would just say they gave them to an official. They didn't say who actually went to the game. So we didn't know who went to the game.
And because we're talking about gambling, which should be highly regulated, that's not okay. Like if you ask Bob's Plumbing who went to the game, screw you, right? I'm Bob's Plumbing. I don't need to tell you. But if I'm a legalized gambling corporation, you're supposed to keep records, right? That's the crux of why we're even here today, right? You're from the state, they're a licensed gaming operation, they should keep records.
Right. Well, the Gaming Commission has guidelines for video lottery and includes things like this, like prizes, and they should keep track of who got the prizes.
And I'm just trying to ascertain or discern what the attitude was. So you ask me, I'm at OTB, and I say, I don't know. I mean, like, is that the answer, or is it, I know, and I'm not telling you? Like, what was the answer like?
I think they cooperated with our audit. They gave us as much information as they had or as they could, as it was recorded. And as you said, in our report, some of the information was kind of not recorded, so they couldn't provide that kind of information. But we believe whatever they had, they provided that information to us, but it was incomplete because some of the stuff was not on record.
So do you think I'd call that sloppy, I guess, right? I didn't keep records of my mileage. I didn't keep records of who came to a game, right? That's a little sloppy. Is that an official accounting term? Sloppy?
Yes.
Maybe incomplete records.
Oh, I'm going to call it sloppy. So do you think, do you do other audits? Like, do you think they're that incomplete record sloppiness with slot machine revenues? Or do you think they know to the penny what a machine paid out?
Well, that's not something we reported out on in this audit, so
Yeah.
something I can.
I got to believe they know every penny that comes and goes, right? I mean, it's pretty important. So do you think, I mean, what I'm trying to get at here is this a lapse of memory or an I'm not going to tell you situation? I mean, I know who I went to a game with in 1973 when they ran back the kickoff all the way, right? The opening kickoff was run off. I know the 4 guys I was at that game with. I don't know. I just do. It's not that hard. So I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me to be easy enough to just say, I don't know. But anyway, you're the accountant, so you just make referrals, right? So Woody Guthrie's dead. Nobody remembers. I don't want anyone to forget this audit. What's the important thing I should take away? Like you just reported it, screamed into your pillow and went back to another job. I mean, how can we help? I don't want to forget this event. What did you suggest in your report as a finding?
We recommended that they come up with an actual policy to say how they're planning on distributing tickets for the program, the marketing program, including who should be eligible to get those tickets. We said that they should consult with legal counsel to determine who is allowed to get tickets, whether employees are allowed to use some of the tickets, and that perhaps they should seek reimbursement for tickets that were given out improperly. We also recommended that they make sure they put in the marketing plan all the people that they expect to give tickets to, not just, because I think their marketing plan basically said they would give them the high rollers and other games. They didn't mention any of the officials that were going to get them, and that they should maintain a complete record of all the tickets that were distributed and who got them.
Right.
So that was our recommendation.
And do you go back like a year from now and see if they did it? I mean, or do they, you tell the board this and the board doesn't care, they don't care, right? I mean, I'm glad you found this information, but I want some action. I'm not from you. I don't want to feel incomplete in my life. I feel a hole in my soul this morning. Well,
like I mentioned earlier, we do ask them to do a corrective action plan that has to be due in 90 days. And that is a public document to say how they're going to address our recommendations. And if they aren't going to address our recommendations, why? And I think, so if you read the response to from OTB, they were positive and said that they have already started to implement more ways to track the tickets, and I think they're working on a policy and that kind of thing to do better going forward.
So it doesn't rise to criminal activity in any way. I took all the tickets every game and gave them to, whoever. I took them all and I sold them to my friends, right? There's no level of criminality that you would suggest because you're accountants. You wouldn't suggest that the attorney general look into this. You wouldn't, I mean, you don't, you just don't, right?
Well, I said we're auditors, we're not law enforcement, but we did refer some of the matters to the Attorney General's office so that they can look into that more.
You did. You did suggest the Attorney General look into it more.
Right. So. And then
Do you have a badge? Do you have a badge?
I have my state ID. I don't really have like an official like OSC badge or anything.
Because I've been on the other side of that desk, and when you walk in and just they usher somebody into your office and you flap open that thing, your heart goes a little. It's like the cop following you on the road. You're not doing anything wrong, But when you flap that thing, you got power. You should appreciate that while you got it. We're nervous about you, and we're not doing anything wrong.
But the other thing is, taxpayers and residents, they can reach out to their elected officials, either the county, because OTB board is appointed by the local counties in the city, the two cities, Rochester and Buffalo. So if taxpayers are concerned, they should let their local officials know, because local officials don't know what taxpayers are interested in unless they contact them. So
yeah,
it's important for them to do that and to have the conversation, like a show like this where you're having the conversation. That's an important thing for people to, let people know what they want.
That was the best statement you ever made. So exactly. Was this difficult to do this morning? I mean, this wasn't a difficult discussion, was it?
I don't think so.
Abhimanyu, especially for you. You didn't say much.
No, it was not.
So this is, don't even answer because it's not your purview. But I will say it is increasingly difficult to ask these questions of anybody who does the job. Like you guys are staff, and this was unbelievable. This had to be a mistake. They're going to bar you from ever doing this again, right? But
maybe
I'll say the most public episode probably was in when Governor Cuomo was there. He just never even took questions. He'd have public videos where he'd just spew out the stuff without ever asking questions. When the leader starts to do that, everybody under that person follows. So we get down to, civics in Niagara Falls, and you can't really talk to the mayor anymore. There's a public information officer. So you can't talk to the police chief directly. You have to go through a public information officer. We're just drifting from that. So I can't thank Tom DiNapoli enough for personally, letting people talk. For how comfortable must Tom DiNapoli be in his own skin to say, I don't know, go talk to the people that did it and ask them anything you want. You two don't realize how weird this was. No one's allowed to speak anymore. And this wasn't hard. You didn't say anything wrong, and I didn't say anything weird, right? I mean, let's do this more. Go tell all your friends in government. This was okay.
Right.
Anyway, I do want to say, I don't know these people, but Jennifer Freeman, who set this up for your office, Tom DiNapoli, who didn't blink and just said, do it. And both of you, this was almost unique. I don't use that word unique very lightly, but nobody answers questions anymore. Nobody comes down and says, here's what we did, A, B, and C. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing your time this morning.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Jabiali Magana and Nicole Thompson, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank
You
you.
too.
Bye.
Bye. All right, we can't thank the comptroller's office enough. Again, one, they provided great information. So that was fantastic. And Nicole, you can just click your leave the meeting button. Great. They provided great information, but they were here. It's kind of like the debate the other night that was on Citizens United, where only one person showed up. That person got tough questions, but that was the only person. So you got to show up at stuff like this. So I don't know. I'm kind of speechless at how impressed I am by New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli and his entire staff by just saying, sure, we'll talk. I mean, it's unbelievable. Anyway, what brought this audit to light last week was not the great audit that was done and the hard work that was done, but by local people that talk about it. And Jim Schultz writes a column, a pretty regular column, in the Lockport Union Sun and Journal. And we're always talking about how we need local journalism. We need local journalism. It's like the bees with plants. I mean, we can't not have it. So Jim takes time out of his day for nothing, I'm sure. And he writes a column, and it's always informative and always good. But I got to say, this one was especially good. We'll bring Jim on whenever we can right now. But it was especially good because we like people who do what they talk about. So Jim didn't just vent about something in his article. Jim has a lot of experience traveling to Latin America, South America. And so in that experience that he's got, world experience, he put that into his story about this OTB situation, because the auditors were great. We didn't want to pick on them too much. But Investigative Post, if you're not following that, writes regularly, routinely, and detailed about FBI investigations, which are going on over these OTB allegations. Much harder stuff than those auditors will do. But again, they're just auditors, so they lay it out there. But without somebody like Jim to put it into context, we forget. And I don't want to forget Jim. After this, he wrote one column. We can't let that go. We have to talk about it constantly because, again, this doesn't rise to the level of murder. But if OTB is wasting my money, I get a gas tax or a garbage tax or something else. It all flows down to you and I having to cover what the waste is. So anyway, my soapbox. Jim, they brought you on.
Good morning, friend. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Pleasure to see you. Thank you for doing this, and I don't take that lightly. Thank you.
And on game day, no less.
Well, we got a couple hours. Next week, I'm a little conflicted because there's a London game at 9:30, and it'll conflict with this show, but we're going to plug through. We're going to fight through it. Anyway, I read your column, and I always read your column, but on this one, you have a specific knowledge of South America. And I don't want to paint South America with one brush, but we generally say South America, crime-ridden, the bad government, the Colombian drug runners. We paint a broad brush. You specifically tied this type of sloppy government to a third world country. Can you go over your article and what struck you like that?
Well, actually, I did live in South America and Bolivia for 20 years, so I'm a bit familiar with the way governments work in those places. But actually, the experience I shared in the column was I do work with organizations all over the world who do citizen engagement in public affairs, groups like UNICEF and others. And so I was in Uganda a few years ago, and I was helping out an organization that was monitoring the way public officials were managing public monies. And we were out in this rural community talking about the fact that the local officials were skimming money off the top of the school budget to put into their pockets. And I never forgot one of the things that somebody said to me, because, sometimes our public officials get confused between what is their money and what is the people's money. And that's the headline of the audit of OTB in Western New York. You have an agency run by a group of officials who really have completely blurred the line between what is the people's money and what is their money. How do you not know that it's wrong to dole out Buffalo Bills tickets like they're candy? That's not like I accidentally, used the company car to go to the grocery store and get milk, or I called my mother on the company phone and I didn't realize I couldn't do. This is $120,000 of high-end concert tickets and Bills games tickets and Sabres tickets that they're handing out like candy to themselves, their friends, their political allies. And look, to me, it's pretty simple. once you have people who run a public agency who that blatantly communicate to you, we are willing to take the people's money and spend it on ourselves, they need to be gone, period. I mean, you either have a zero tolerance policy for corruption or you don't. These are grown-ups. These are people with a lot of experience. They know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing is wrong. And the question now is, how are we going to respond to it? Are we just going to blow it off and go, oh, everybody's corrupt, what are you going to do? Or are we going to say we have a zero tolerance policy in this community for corruption? And it is corruption. And it's the people's money. This is money that's supposed to go for things like public services, fixing the roads, financing the county sheriff. If it's not coming from OTB, it's coming from that county tax bill that you get every year and growl at because it seems like it's too much money. So to me, what we have here is just a good old classic case of third world corruption right here in Western New York.
Well said. Thank you. But what strikes me as different from previous corruption is that this always goes on. We're not a babe in the woods, but it used to be that Bob Smith, did something wrong. Maybe even just a DWI, or he got caught stealing something. Bob Smith went away. Like, I'm sorry, Bob, they called you in. I'm sorry, Bob, you have to go now. Like, we can't, you're giving us a black eye and you have to go. Like, they protected the scam by getting rid of the person that brought attention to the scam. What seems to happen now is it does not matter. Bob Smith stays, goddamn it, no matter what. Screw you because nobody cares. That seems to be the case now. Like, if we were able to go to the 14 people who appoint that CEO, who's responsible for doing this, they would say, I'm sorry, you have to go now. We're going to put another CEO in who we might keep the same scam going, but you've become too hot. Jim, they're not going to do a goddamn thing that I can see. Well, they haven't, because this is the second audit. I mean, they can do as many audits. Those are two very highly qualified, nice people that we just talked to. They're not going to get anywhere, right?
One of the things that makes this scandal at this moment the right place to draw the line is this is not me or you or other people talking about the detail. This is detail that was dug out primarily by hard working reporters at the Investigative Post and now completely affirmed by these two excellent state employees who are, they're like, Jack Webb on Dragnet. They're just the facts, man. That's what they're there for. They're not political people. They're fact checkers, and they've checked their facts. They've published their facts. And what the facts tell us is that the leadership of OTB, its staff and its board, are lining their pockets with freebies that come out of taxpayer money. That is no longer a factual question. The sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, and OTB is afflicted with a case of serious corruption. So, the famous expression from Watergate of follow the money. I think what we need to do here is follow the democracy, because ultimately that is the only tool we have. And so the leadership of the OTB is appointed by this board of directors. The board of directors is appointed by the municipalities, by the county and the two cities that own the OTB, by our county legislators. That is why, and I'll be writing about this again this week, I think that we need to call on every single county legislator here in Niagara County, and other people in other counties need to do the same. Buffalo needs to do the same. Very straightforward demand. Number one, replace the appointee that the county has on the OTB board and direct that replacement to fire the executive director of the OTB, period. If you find somebody in your house, robbing your house, and you don't take away their keys and change the locks, you're an idiot. Mm-hmm. We're not idiots. And the way in which we take away their keys and change the locks is we tell the members of the county legislature, and we do it now while they're running for re-election, when they're paying attention. We do it this month, and we say, you are either willing to clean house at OTB or you're not. we're going to give you a choice. We're going to actually have you vote on it. And if you aren't willing to clean house at OTB, you need to go. We need to be firm, because this is not just about the OTB scandal. Every, public official around Western New York in one of these agencies or in local government, they're all looking at this, and they're all asking the same question that you're asking, which is anybody going to pay a price for this? And if the result of all of this, a well-documented scandal, if the result of all this is that nobody pays a price, then, as I said in the column, let's just put up a big sign in front of the county courthouse here in Lockport saying corruption, welcome here, because that's exactly what they're doing.
Jim, this is fantastic, everything you just said. I just think there isn't anyone who's going to do that, because it used to be you made a name for yourself in politics. Hey, there's a scandal, I'm going to fix it. I'm a Tom Dewey, I'm a crime buster or whatever. The current people running for office just seem to be like a big high school reunion. They never want to make any waves. I don't hear anybody saying, if elected, I will be, right? I will stand for. I haven't heard that since maybe Tom Dewey. I mean, I don't see a leader that I can follow in this, because I'd love to take up tomorrow. I'm ready to run through a brick wall to do just what you said, but I don't know who's going to help. I don't know who's going to do it. Where do I put my energy? And it can't be you. It can't, I don't want to be negative, but Jesus.
But that's where you're mistaken.
Good. I want to be mistaken. I've never wanted to be more wrong in my life. Tell me.
If you look everywhere in the world where corruption is taken on, it's because the people take it on. That's how you do it. We can't wait for some politician to come in like on a white horse and save the day. And people need to get used to the idea that, government is not like Walmart, where I don't like the service at Walmart, so now I'm going to take my business to Target. It's like, no, your government is your government. And you have to roll up your sleeves. I've had such a reaction to this column from business leaders, from people who've got their own stories about watching OTB officials give away things like candy. I mean, it's pretty amazing, the stories that are out there. And I think what you have is a citizenry here who says, look, I get up really in the morning, I drive down transit, I go to work, I work really hard, I come home, I mow the lawn, I cook dinner, I hang out with my kids, and maybe if I'm lucky, I get a half an hour before I fall asleep to watch a game or Netflix or something else. I really don't have the bandwidth or patience to think about politics or government. And yeah, they're all corrupt, but what are you going to do? So we have to break through that. So first of all, they're not all corrupt. There's some really amazing public servants in this city, in this county. I feel really fortunate. I live in Lockport. We have an amazing mayor, Michelle Roman, who is just, she's an emblematic of what a public servant should be. She's honest, she works hard, and she's the most centered human being I think I've ever known in politics. So there are good people out there, but we need to demand action. And the window to demand action is now, because now is when they're running for election. And you put your finger on it, Tom, in a really good way, which there are no issues. There are no, what is the issue in the campaign? Is the issue, I can fill potholes faster than somebody else? This is the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not Republican, this is not Democratic, this is not left, this is not right. This is, do you believe as a foundation that your government and the people who work for it should not steal from you?
Mm-hmm.
Period. And if we can't rally people around that, then we might as well put signs in front of our houses that say corruption, welcome here. So This is our moment. And I think we need a point of pressure. So I want the legislature to, and I know there are legislators who will do this, to introduce a clean the house resolution. Make it simple, make it something people can follow. A clean the OTB house resolution that has two very specific pieces. Number one, we hereby fire and replace the representative of this county on the board, and we direct that replacement to fire the director of the OTB, period. And we do that in Niagara County. We get the city of Buffalo to do it. We ask Rochester to do it. We ask people all over Western New York to call on their legislators to do that. Very simple. A clean the OTB house resolution, two things. replace your board member, fire the director, period. That's how it started.
How do I want to do this? How do I do it? So the two biggest people in Western New York right now, and again, this is 14 counties, so it's a big area. It's Rochester. You know, the Byron Brown and India Walton campaign dominates 247 in the Buffalo News. Neither one of those people have commented on the OTB. I mean, I think this is the biggest scandal in Western New York, and no one's commented on it. You have. I love you, and I know you. I don't think they know you. Like, how do we get their attention? Investigative Post didn't ask them, you know, that I know of. They didn't write about it. You know, hey, India, what the hell?
Or Byron Brown, hey, you're still mayor from now till November. You trying to look good? Here's a way to look good. You know, do this. But see, part of the problem is it's not just apathy, right? It's very hard for citizens to understand how to have an impact. And you know, that's the work I do, right? I work with citizen activists all over the world, from, you know, New York to Thailand to California. Look at what we did on facial recognition cameras here in Lockport. The school district here wasted $2.7 million on these goofy facial recognition cameras. And we organized, we got people mad. 100 people petitioned the school board. And then we, you know, mobilized with people in other parts of the state. And last December, the legislature approved and the governor signed a ban on these systems statewide, directly in response to Lockport and directly in response to the anger of people here. It is completely possible to make a difference, but you've got to give people something concrete they can do. So the concrete thing that they can do now is, number one, we need to call on legislators to introduce these Clean the OTB House resolutions. And then we need to mobilize people through Facebook and social media to publicize that and to put pressure on these elected officials. And if they knock on your door, then you need to ask them about it. You know, when I posted that article that you mentioned, I posted it on, we have a huge Facebook page here in Lockport called Lockportians. About 12,000 people belong to it. So a really large portion of the city is on that. And I posted it and I tagged the two candidates for legislature here in Lockport, Anita Mullane, who is our incumbent, and Rick Gavitt, who's a member of the Common Council and is running to replace her. And I said, the two of you, what's the story? What is your position on this issue? Anita Mullane responded immediately and posted a statement saying that she is in favor right now of replacing the current representative on the board of OTB that Niagara County has, and to fire the director of the agency. Well, we haven't heard from Rick Abbott. Well, people need to be held accountable. You know, when he knocks on your door, you need to say, well, that's really nice that you want to fill potholes. What is your position on zero tolerance for corruption in Western New York? Are you in favor of zero tolerance, or are you not in favor of zero tolerance?
You know, I really like this. I think you're pretty good at your job, if no one's told you that before. But okay, is there a resolution like draft that I can send to my two legislative candidates and say the same darn thing? Like, do you support this, like, you know, this piece of paper? Is there a piece of paper?
I think you're going to see one within a week.
Good, great.
And
I love
it. And I'm going to write a column asking people and telling people what they can do to push it. And, you know, I think it comes down to this. There's a group of people in Niagara County who pay attention to politics. And for the most part, it's people who are partisan. They pay attention to politics because they're trying to get their friends elected, or they're just very interested in politics. That is not most people. Most people is that guy or that woman who is just trying to hold their lives together and keep the food cooked, keep the lawn mowed, and keep the kids from going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to give those folks a way to participate in this, something simple that they can do. And that is power. And now is the time to do it, because now is when the elections are happening. And, you know, we get these mailers in the mail about how wonderful I am, and you know, with glossy pictures. No, tell us, are you for, are you against? a zero tolerance policy for corruption, beginning with the OTB.
I love this. You've converted me this morning. And I am not saying that lightly. I am.
Be careful what you get converted to on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm good. I'm all good on that part. I got that part. But, you know, this, you have explained, you've dumbed it down to my level that I know what I can do. You've given me an action item. There's a document, hopefully, and I can ask that specific question. What do you think this color is, green or red? I just need to know what you, on this. I like that specificity. And because I think that's a building block. We can't get rid of all the corruption at one point. And if corruption built Las Vegas here, and I don't mean Las Vegas because I hate that city, but I mean economic development, I guess we'd, you know, look the other way, but it's built. Lockport, you're nice. You're there. You're nice. But we focus on the city of Niagara Falls, and it is suboptimal. Niagara Falls is suboptimal to the region because it's a cash machine that could be spitting off a lot more.
I don't think that's a good slogan to put up on a sign. You know, welcome to Niagara Falls, suboptimal in the region.
Well, Trump stole my other word for it, so I don't want to give him the satisfaction of that.
I think what we're talking about, to borrow a phrase, is it's time to drain the swamp.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing I've learned, again, having watched this in a lot of different places. I mean, trust me, Bolivia, corruption, political power, you know, there, when the government doesn't like what you're doing, they just shoot at you and tear gas you. And I've been shot at, and I've been tear gassed. And I have watched regimes like this fall overnight for only one reason. People lose their apathy and lose their fear. In a place like South America, it's not apathy that's in the way, it's fear, because it is it's a dangerous thing to challenge government. It's not a dangerous thing in this country to challenge government. You can challenge, it's your legal right. It's your birthright as a citizen. It's apathy that gets in the way. So what we need to do here is break through apathy. And I have to tell you, there is something about this scandal at OTB that has the capacity to break through that apathy, because it is clear. It is not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about corruption. And everybody can understand, I wish I could go sit in a luxury box at a Bills game. And if they want to hand out luxury box tickets to Bills games like candy, why not give it to the families of kids who are in the hospital who need something to give them some mental relief? Why not hand it out to first responders? Why not hand it out to veterans? Why not hand it out to people who are serving the homeless in our community, or people who are doing public? Why on earth are they handing it to themselves? It is an outrageous act of self-dealing, and it's not the tickets, it's not the money, it is the mentality that it demonstrates, that you sit in a public position and you think it's completely cool to line your pockets and those of your friends with free tickets at taxpayer expense. Once you have demonstrated that that is the mentality with which you occupy a public position, you need a different job. You need to go away. And that is something that people, regardless of their politics, regardless of whether they're even political, understand. And that's what we have to tap into.
And I can't add anything to what you say, but I'm going to keep stepping on your lines. I found all the elected officials I've ever worked with or known or talked to, which is a lot. They want to get reelected. And I don't even mean that pejoratively. That's their job. Stay in office and try and help. And the other thing I found is that there's a lot of, well, I didn't even know. You know, we forgot to tell you. I mean, that does happen. I got a big puddle in front of my house. I didn't even know. When they know, they do try and fix things. This is something that we can let them know. And I would say that you're right. The OTB corruption cannot withstand all the public officials because they won't look the other way if we ask them not to. They just won't. They're human beings and they want to stay in office because they want to serve the public. They're not really the problem. Unless we ask, though, they can always say, I don't know. No one asked me. Nobody told me. If we ask directly, will you do this thing that you say? Bullet points. They have to say yay or nay. You're absolutely right.
And it's more than just, will you do this? It's, we need legislators to force a vote.
Mhm.
We need legislators. You are going to vote yes or no. You don't get to avoid this question. And look, I recognize that for some people, this is personally painful because these are their friends. These are people they have known since high school. These are people who help them get reelected. These are people who they hang out with and watch games with if they're not lucky enough to get one of the free tickets.
Mhm.
That's too bad. If you hold a public office and your friends are doing things that are corrupt, you have to decide where your loyalty lies. Is it with your friends or with the public trust that you've been given? And if you really want to, prioritize your loyalty to your friends, then don't run for public office and hand it over to somebody who understands the words public trust.
Jim, I think the census data that came out, one of the census tracts in Niagara Falls, in the city of Niagara Falls, the mean income is $11,200 a year for that family. And OTB has more than one lobbyist on payroll, usually politically connected, at $8,500 a month. This is what I think people don't understand when they have to cook the food and cut the lawn and drive to work. That's a lot of money. And my garbage fee goes up, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And I don't know that you need to lobby Albany all that much. Albany wants you to succeed already. So it is not just the tickets, it is the whole cabal.
And this is how it reminds me so much of Bolivia, right? In Bolivia, whether it was in a city or a national government or the little village where we lived, people would work really hard to get elected because it meant that they could give jobs and benefits to their friends. Public office was considered a way to open up the door of opportunity to your friends. Mm-hmm. And that was the way business was done. Well, that's not the way you do the public's business. It's not the way you do the public's business in a place like Bolivia, and it's not the way you do the public's business in Niagara County. And I want to say one more thing before we end here.
Yeah, we're out of time. Go ahead.
We live in a beautiful place. We live in an extraordinary part of the world here in Western New York. I'm so gifted and blessed to live here with my family. We can't move forward and take advantage of what this community has to offer if we can't have a base of clean government, period.
Right. Full stop. Jim Schultz, thank you for coming on today. Thanks for you give up time to do this, and there's no reward for it other than your civic duty. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, it's my hobby. Other people work with wood.
If you will somehow share with me, I will share with everybody I know this bullet point of asking a specific question. Will you do this?
We're going to create a citizens petition online that people can sign to press their legislators to move forward. We're going to give people ways to participate. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much. Jim Schultz, have a great day.
All right, you as well. And go Bills.
All right, go Bills. All right. We had a great talk with Jim Schultz, who, again, lit the passion of what this means. We had the auditors before that from Tom DiNapoli's office who described how they did the audit and why they did the audit. The two big takeaways there is no public official lets their staff talk to people anymore. Tom DiNapoli just imploded the system by allowing that to happen. It's no small thing. Tom DiNapoli today is the star of the day. And then Jim put the passion to it and the focus of what we have to do. The auditors gave us the information. That's all they can do. That's their job. Jim gave us the passion of we just can't take this anymore. And this is one of those moments that we have to do something. And he's going to provide some of that direction for us. Anyway, go Bills. We'll watch them. We will watch them from the box. It is a home game, ironically, and OTB has 14 tickets or 16 tickets in that box today. So go Bills, go OTB. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.